Begin the Daf from Mesech Kesuvos Daf Tzadiches. Begin 7 lines down at the top of the Yomid. The Gemara continues in a theme related to the halacha of our Mishnah regarding this woman who is selling off assets from a husband, either to collect for her ksuba or to collect from a zaynis. Does she have to go ahead and take an oath regarding that sale or not? Today's daf. Some things we discuss in today's daf are the questions regarding, as we just mentioned, of mecheres shleib bezdin. So whether it's for mezainis or even for ksuba that we discussed in our Mishnah already, the question is, as we're going to start off asking, does she need to make a shvua, an oath, and also does she need to make a achraza, an announcement before she sells that there's going to be a sale, which obviously you get more money if you make announcements beforehand. Halacha of machar shava mana b'mesayim or shava mesayim b'mana. The next Mishnah discusses what happens if she oversells or she undersells. Something that's worth 100 she sells for 2, or something that's worth 200 she sells for 100. Then we have machlekes regarding Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yisi in the case of hisipul achas yiser. If you send an agent to go buy something for you, and the seller then adds on more than what the going price is, who gets that? Does that belong to the shlich? Does that belong to the bal hamois? And that halacha regarding hashlich sheyas shlichut shasik was a bal bayis mu'al. That relates to the halacha of the agency of the person. If, let's say, it turns out to be the monies that he used was hektish monies, that actually it's not the agent, but it's actually the balabayis that does the ilam, because the shliach, although he's an own independent person, but that's attributed to the one who said. So begin the Daf Tzadiches, 7 lines down to the top of the Yomid. Like we said, the Mishnah in the previous Daf had broken the Tanakama. She's going to go ahead and sell the husband's assets, the late husband's assets, out of court, even for her ksuba. So now the question the Gemara asks, says this that we said she could sell it out of court, and if it's done in court, the courts are doing it. But if she sells it out of court, does she have to take an oath? Now Rashi says that that she didn't collect more than the sale didn't exceed the amount of her ksuba. Taisa says just to say that the sale was not below market value. So either way, that would be reasons why she would have to take an oath. Does she have to take an oath? Or does she not have to take an oath? Says the Gemara, what are you asking if she has to take an oath? There's a step before swearing that you should ask about. But you should ask, does she require announcements before you sell it, like it's done in court? And that's a question you should ask. I wasn't asking you that regarding announcement. That I have no question about. Well, I don't have a question. Because it says, if a widow went ahead and she evaluated a property for herself, meaning she took the field of the orphans for herself in an evaluation of how much her value of a ksuba is. Says Reb Nachman, she hasn't done anything. That's his halacha. Says the Gemara, what's the case talking about? Either achers, if she had made announcements beforehand, why is it that she didn't do anything? She announced that there's going to be a sale, and she was the highest bid, whatever it is, for the value of her ksuba, and she got the market value. So what's the problem? Rather, isn't it obvious the lo achers she did not make an announcement? Okay, and then you're saying that for herself she hasn't done anything, and therefore if the orphans subsequently want to go ahead and give her monies at a later point in time, they could take back their field from her. But acher sounds like, but for someone else, masha asa, what she had done is done. So therefore, he said, I never was going to ask her regarding achraza. You see from the halacha of Nachman, which obviously is talking about that she didn't make an announcement, because making an announcement, the Gemara is assuming that obviously would be okay. So she didn't make an announcement, and it's only for herself that you're saying shasham la'atzma, that's not okay. But for someone else, you see that it would be okay even at achraza. So therefore, I wasn't going to ask. I was just asking, does she need a shvur? So the Gemara says, no, it's not true. La'ilam, the truth is, I could tell you that Reb Nachman's halacha is talking about the achras, that she made an announcement. So wait a second, if she made an announcement beforehand, then why would you say that if she did it to herself, that it's not going to be okay? Says the Gemara, the Amri, because they tell her, man shamlach. Who evaluated for you? In other words, as Rashi's words are, from whom did you receive this sale? Not from the courts. Again, she was doing it out of Bezin, and not from the orphans. She was doing it herself. So it really never left her possession. So therefore, it never left the domain of the orphans. But where she evaluated for someone else, so then it's leaving from the domain of the Yarshim because the Chami gave her permission to sell. That's what we're saying, that she's allowed to sell chutz lebezin. So therefore, it could be that it actually was with an announcement, but we're saying that for herself it doesn't work, but for others it would work. And again, therefore, you wouldn't have a raya to say that you don't need achraza. To the contrary, I could say that you actually would need achraza in this halacha. Kihai, as we find, that who gaver dafkidu gabe kista. There was a person that they had deposited by him some of the animal food, this fodder, and the yasmi of the orphans, and also shamla dafshei. So he went evaluated for himself. Like he sold it off to himself. Ayakar, it ended up going up in price, and come b'shisma. It was already worth in the market value as 600. Also come into Ramam. He came from the Ramam. Amalei said to him, Man shamlach, who evaluated for you? It never left their domain because it was still by you, but you was deposited. So therefore, again, it's possible that you do need a chraza. And then before I said, I was only asking, meaning regarding the shvua, he was saying he didn't ask regarding a chraza because it's obvious that you don't need it. It's not true. So the Gemara could be there's a question regarding a chraza too. But ultimately, the Gemara concludes, the halacha is tzricha shvua, that she does have to take an oath. Again, according to Rashi, is that she didn't collect more than what she was allowed to. According to Taisus, is that she didn't undersell. And she does not need to have an announcement. She doesn't have to announce it before. So that concludes that previous Mishnah. Now, the next Mishnah continues on this theme regarding the woman selling the husband's estate for the collection of her ksuba. What happens if she doesn't sell it exactly at market value, as the Mishnah explains? So you have an almana, a widow. So a ksuba, as the generic ksuba, is 200 zuz. Now, she took something worth 100. She is very industrious, and she got a good price. She sold it for 200. Or the other way around. Shava Masayim. She took something worth 200, and she sold the b'mana for 100. She is terrible at selling. She got ripped off. Either way, says the Mishnah, Niskabla Ksubasa. She's already received her ksuba, meaning regarding this last case, although she's only getting 100, we tell her, look, it's your loss. You took a property worth 200 and you sold it for 100. But we'll see why the first case is different the other way. Let's say her ksuba was 100, like a widow. Now, she sold something worth a mana and a dinner, so it was worth more than 100 dinar, it's 101. She sold it for b'mana for 100. Says the Mishnah, the sale is void. Why? Because that extra dinner, she didn't have permission to sell, comes out the whole sale was a mistake. Why? Because we're sold in one shot. So you're selling this 101. What do you don't have rights to sell 101, you have some rights to sell 100. So therefore it's void. And a fili here matters even if she says, hey, wait a second. What's the problem? I'll give back a dinner to the Yarshan. I'll only be taking 100. No, Machar Batal, the sale is void because that was an inappropriate sale. He says, no, it's not true. The sale will be valid. And yes, she'll give back the extra dinner to the Yarshim because what did she make them lose already? Unless if there is over there in that fraud, meaning in the what we call Ainah, so that had there not been an Ainah, there would be enough Kadesha to shiur besada that you should have left over. Let's say she's selling a field. Bas Tisha Kav and 9 Kav, and meaning together with what she was off, or let's say the Ainah itself that she miscalculated and she sold too much for a cheaper price was 9 Kavan, or Rashi says something would even be if, let's say, it was left over to the orphans over there besides the 9 Kavan. The main idea basically is that since for the orphans there would be an amount of land that's the shear of a field, they could tell her, we don't want that a field that's fit for us to be sold off. But if, let's say, what she was off with was not fit to combine to be a sada, so then really she didn't cause them, no one needs a small little strip of land. You can't do anything with it. There's a certain shear of what we call a sada, which is 9 kavan. So if she somehow affected a 9 kavan amount of area, let's say they had 9 and she sold off a little bit of it, now they're left with less, or she sold off by mistake more at a shiur of 9 kavin. Anything that would make a configuration of 9 kavin, they're like, hey, this is a field. But if it would be less than that, then it has no value anyway. So you're right, they wouldn't care as long as she gives them back the dinner. That would be okay, unless it's affecting that amount. Now that's regarding a field. There's a shiur of 9 kav in the beginning. Regarding a garden, is smaller, so it would be bas chatzi kav. That's the shiur of a garden. Now Kedivri Bekiva, which we hear from him elsewhere in Bava Basra, then it's base roiva. He holds even less. He's held the shiur of a garden is a quarter of a kav. But al kapanim, according to Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg, that the sale would only not be effective if the extra amount would combine to form a minimum field or a garden. If not, he's like, yeah, it's okay. Why is not a good sale? Just give them back the extra dinner. Now, let's say let's say the ksuba was 400 zuz. So she's selling it off. She sells to one person for 100. Well, she sells to the second person with another 100, and the third one another 100. So she already sold 300. Well, the achrain doesn't say that, but there's a third one also. And the last one, the last 400, Yafa mana b'dinner, she sells what's worth 101 b'mana for 100. So this is the Mishnah shel achin batal. Only the last one's going to be void. But shel kulam achar gayim. All the other ones are going to be a valid sale because that wasn't wrong. It was 100, 100, 100. The last one, when we had this case previously, we said it's going to be void because one sale. Here's different sales. Those are all okay. The last one is problematic. That one is going to be a void. Now, says the Gemara, interesting question. Maishno, what's the difference? You had the first two cases of the Mishnah. You said that if she sells something worth 100 for 200, or something for 200 for 100, either way, we're going to say that you got your ksuba already. So the Gemara says, I don't understand. The sounds similar, but the logic is actually the opposite. What's the difference between Shavah Masayim B'mana? That when she sells something worth 200 for 100, you tell her, Damrila, Atafsadis, your loss, it was worth 200. You undersold it for 100. But if that's the case in Shavamon, the Masayim Nami, when she takes something worth 100 and sells it for 200, Timan Narvachna. Why can't I say, well, I made the gain, so I should be able to sell another 100 and end up coming out with 400 because I'm overselling it. Rav Nachman, Rav Bavoy says a very important concept. It says, continue to Beis Kan Shana Rebbe, meaning in this Mishnah of ours, Rebbe's teaching us the following halachic principle: Hakol labal hamos. Everything goes to the owner of the money. Meaning, if someone sends his agent to the marketplace for merchandise, and he buys it cheap, below market value, everything goes to the owner of the monies, and he can't say, I made the profit, I should be able to take that. You were going to pay this amount, and I was a handler in the whatever he did to get that lower price. No, you don't say that. And that's the same thing over here. She cannot say Anoravachna, because it's not her monies. Ketanya, like learned in the Brisa, which is the Mesefta's Demai, that there's a Machlekes Tanoim in this halacha. Now, in the conclusion, which is what our Gemara is trying to bring, regarding what's called Davar She'en Lo Kitzva, something that does not have a set market value, Rabbi Yossi holds, everything goes to the owner of the monies, and that's what we're saying, that Rabbi is anonymously saying in our Mishnah, over here, like Rabbi Yossi, because our Mishnah's case is also what's called Davar She'en Lo Kitzva, because property is always sold at evaluative prices, sometimes more, sometimes less. It's not like a set market value. It's totally independent of anything, and therefore that's the case of a Mishnah. That's what we're saying, that it goes to the Baal Moister. She cannot say Nor Bachna. Where do we find this halacha? In the following brisa. Let's say the agent is sent to the marketplace, and the guy who sent him the money says, "Hey, here's $100. There's oranges are $10 a piece. Do me a favor, buy 10 of them. That's enough. $100 should get you that." Now let's say the seller gives him an 11th orange. Hakol shliach the Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi Yehuda holds everything goes to the agent, and it's his gain. The guy sent him; he paid for the money that he was getting, and he gave him extra, so it goes to the agent. Rabbi Yehuda says, "No, cholkin, you divide it." So before we come to the conclusion of what we're bringing this in for, the Gemara asks a difficulty, because Batan with another brisa, Rabbi Yossi hakol bala mois. So again, we have three different options. Either everything goes to the shliach, they divide it, or it all goes to the owner of the money. But one thing is, there's a contradiction. Rabbi Yossi, who says in the first brisa cholkin that they divided, meaning half will go to the shliach, half will go to the guy who sent him. In the second brisa, he says everything goes to the owner of the money. It doesn't go to the shliach. How do we resolve that? So Rabbi Shloimy says, look, it's not difficult. You know why? Kan, and here we're getting to the conclusion. When did we say that they divided? Is b'dabashish lekitzva. Something has a set amount. For example, let's say legumes, kidneys, which is sold in the marketplace by measurement. Like a full vessel is a pruta. If they add on one extra, they divide it because it's a gift. So therefore what? We don't know why the seller is giving this gift. Maybe he's giving it to the shliach. He likes the way his guy's yarmulke looks, or how his nose is to the right or to the left. We don't know. Or it could be it's the guy who's buying. Whoever's the buyer, which is the money guy, is like, okay, fine, hey, take another one. Nothing to do with the shliach. So since we don't know, we divide it. But in the second price is b'dava she'ein lekitzva. Something does not have a set amount. For example, let's say a talis or a jacket or yirakas, which are sold by evaluating. Sometimes the seller decides to sell cheap, and sometimes he wants to sell for the money that the dollar that he has in mind. So then Rabbi Yossi says everything goes to the Baal HaMois because no gift. It's not a gift. It's not like there's an extra. It doesn't have a set amount. It's part of the sale. So the sale, that's the gain of the owner of the money, who the sale is being done for him. Oh, so therefore we see Rabbi Yossi holds by davar she'ein lekitzva, it all goes to the Baal HaMois. Kan shon the Rebbe hakol Baal HaMois, that he's being saying like the opinion of Rabbi Yossi in our Mishnah, that she cannot say anor avachtan, I'm going to get the profit, because that's the opinion of Rabbi Yossi, that hakol Baal HaMois, when it's davar she'ein lekitzva, like karka, doesn't have a set amount, so you can't say it's like, oh, achas. It's not like a gift. Like, I'll give you extra, not extra, because it's not a set amount. And that's what Rebbe's teaching us here in our Mishnah. Amar Papa says, Hilchas Halacha is, davar sheyesh lekit, meaning it's saying like Rabbi Yossi, davar sheyesh lekit v'cholkin, it has a set amount that we always know it's a quarter for a wafer, and it's always that amount, and therefore you add on one extra, it's obviously a gift. We don't know who it's for, then you divide it. If it does not have a set amount, then everything goes to the owner of the monies. That's what it's going to. So what's he teaching us? We just said this. No, the shinui. The reason why he's saying this as halach is to tell us that the answer that we gave is a valid answer, and that's actually how we paskin in the opinion of Rabbi to resolve the contradiction, and that's also related to halacha of our Mishnah. Now, the following interesting question related to this idea that we just mentioned. Amalei, if let's say the person said to his agent, Zabili, I want you to do me a favor, I want you to sell from my fields lischa. A lischa is an area of a half a kor. Then he goes and he sells for him, instead of a half a kor, he sells him a whole kor. What's the halacha? What's the question? So the Gemara says like this. On the one hand, you'll say, he's adding on to what he said. He said half, he sold whole. But lischa miyakani. And therefore the buyer should at least acquire the liska worth. And if the balabai is coming to back out, he can't back out because you told him to sell half, so he sold the whole. Okay, but at least let him get a half. A dimel maybe that no, and this is obviously related to halacha of a mission, like we said, as we'll get right back to it. The Gemara is going to arrive from that it's like, it's all bottle if you're a little off. No, you're violating his words. But let's no, you just didn't do what I asked, and therefore you don't even acquire even the list. I come back out from that too. So that was the question. So Rabbi Yaakov now Pekoid Mishmei Rabbi. It says Tosh must make a raya from Mishnah Masechtas Meila. What's the raya? So the Mishnah says like this: Amma Balabayis. If let's say a homeowner says l'shluchet to his agent, Ten lehem chatich lo, I have some guests coming. He says to his butler, he says, go give a piece of meat that I have in my container over there, give it to the guest. Now, and the butler actually tells the guest, each one of you could take 2 pieces of meat. And then each guest, actually each took 3 pieces of meat. And then at the end it turns out, this was kosher meat. This was not allowed to be eaten by anyone. Says the Mishnah, Kulam alu, they all committed me'ilah. Why? The homeowner committed me'ilah because one of the pieces of meat was with his consciousness. The shliach was moil because he said to take a second piece of meat. And the guests were moil because they took a third piece of meat. So each one of them has committed me'ilah. Well, me'ilah is different. Me'ilah, we say that it is going to be attributed to to the balabais. That's what's unique about Meila. But says the Gemara like this: if you're going to say that that when a shliach doesn't do like the agent, like the owner told him, he does more than what he told him. It's not considered like as if he violated his word. He just did more than what he asked him to do. So then I could understand the Mishnah Meila balabais mal. Why was the balabais mal? Because I did what you asked me to do. I just did more than what you did. So you're right. What was more has nothing to do with you. But at least what I did for you is considered having been done for you. But if you say, like you're asking, then maybe when the shliach does more than what asked, it's not like I never did what you asked me to do, and therefore that's regarding the sailor to be back out. So then the question is, then why would you say that the homeowner has committed me'ilah, but if it's not? Mishnah Masechtas Me'ilah teaches, if the agent is doing the agency that the owner sent him for, then then the homeowner has committed misappropriation. But if he doesn't do like he was asked to do, then shliach mal, because that's not what I sent you to do. So if you tell me it's mavra al devarav, then why would you say that the owner's committed meal on the first piece of meat? That's not what I asked you to do, and it's like I never even asked you in the first place. So the Gemara says it's not a raya because what are we talking about over here? The Amalahu, he said to the agent, the agent said to the guest, "Tulu achas midaita shabal hapayis." So when he told the guest, he didn't say here take two that I was being moisev al devarav to maybe be mav al devarav. Maybe it is mav al devarav. So then why is the owner being committing me'ilah? Because he didn't tell him. He didn't tell the guest. The shlich didn't tell. The butler didn't tell the guest. Oh, take two, like as if he told me, and then he was adding on. He said no. One of the pieces of meat the owner wants you to have, and therefore he did his shlichus. But achatz midaiti, and the butler says, don't worry, another piece of meat take on my cheshbon. And they took three. So then, yes, everyone's committing me'ilah. There's no raya for the case of moisev / mav al devar because he wasn't. He was saying exactly as it is, and the other ones he was doing on his own. But now, why do we bring this in? Because Toshma says we bring it right from the halach of our Mishnah. What does our Mishnah say? Our Mishnah says like this.
They each pay back 100, or
the be'ilah?
Yeah, the chomish and all that.
Yeah, each one on their own, whatever they're each on their own.
The extra.
Yeah, him, the guest on the third, and the shlich on the second, and the malais on the first. Yeah. So now what we learn in our Mishnah? Gemara says we learned haisik subasaman. We said let's say her ksub was worth 100 dinar. Umachar shavamana b'dinar b'mana, and she sold something worth 101 dinar. Mana is 100, and a dinar b'mana for 100. What did we say? We said mecher batal. The sale is void. My lab. The Gemara first has to interpret what the case of the Mishnah is. Isn't it saying the zav and shava may have a dinner? So the Gemara is actually not reading it the way we're reading it up until now. The Gemara is saying, isn't it saying she sold something worth 101, b'mana b'dinner for 101? So in regards to the actual amount, there was no mistake. So wait a second, my b'mana is not the way we were reading it. So then why is it saying she sold 101 for 100 if you tell me she sold 101 for 101? No, it means mana shalah. In other words, because she's only supposed to get 100, and she sold 101 for 101, so we're saying when the case of the Mishnah that said 101 for 100 means to say she sold 101 for 101, but for 100 meaning she's only supposed to get 100 of that 101. And umay afila, so what's afila hiyomeres? The Mishnah continued and said, even if she says I'm going to give back the extra dinner to the Yorshin, it's still not going to work. Obviously, what's the afila? I mean, of course she has to do that. It's the orphan. She only supposed to get 100. It means afila hiyomeres. Even if she says achsaz adin liyorshin adin mekarkoi, that's the chiddush. Meaning, even if I'm going to go back and I'm going to buy back from the buyer a dinner's worth of karka, I'm going to give it back to them. Even so, it's not going to work. We see that the sale is void. So wait a second, this seems to be a good raya for the question that we asked. We see that when you do more than what you're allowed to, you're not called meisiv, you're called naver. Because if you're a meisiv, she's getting back the piece of land. That's what the Gemara is reading into the words, that even if she says, the words of the Mishnah, what? Even if she says, I'll give back the extra din to the Arshim, obviously, says the Gemara. What do you mean she's not? Of course, she didn't have any rights to sell that. No, even if she's going to get back the land. But since when you did it, you were meisiv, you did 101 instead of 100, it's void. That would be like the tzad, like the option that it's maver al davar. Because ma'aseh, we say, okay, whatever was supposed to be done was done, and whatever you did more is not. So you see, seemingly says the Gemara from our Mishnah that it's maver al davar. So when I put in the Mishnah, says, no, you're reading the Mishnah wrong. It's actually how we read up until now. It's b'da'ozel. We're talking about where, you know why the sale is void? Because she made a mistake. She sold something worth 101 for 100. So again, there's two different ways how to read the words of the Mishnah. When she sold 101 for 100, what does it mean? And what's the chiddush of the Mishnah? Either it means like the Gemara and the Havamim, the thought that, oh, she sold 101 for 101. So why is it void? Because you only owed 100. Who are you selling 101? And the chiddush is, even if she says I'm going to go back, I'll get back the piece of property. I'll get you back that thing that's worth a karka, and it'll be exactly as I'm supposed to. No, ma'aval davar. You did more. It's like you didn't do anything. The Gemara says no, it's not a raya. It's not what the Mishnah means. Mishnah is saying if it was worth 101, she sold it for 100. What is this? You made a mistake. So therefore, that's why the sale is going to be void. But the Gemara asks us, Getinto of Tzali Tesem and Aleph, wait a second. How could you say that's the chiddush of the Mishnah? Hamid the Sefer, but the Eisel, from the fact that the later case in the Mishnah is saying the same case of when she's underselling, and therefore it's void. So Haveresha, that would sound like then that the Resha, which is our case we're discussing, must be B'delay Eisel. That she's not underselling, because like Rashi says, why would you need to come in two cases of Eisel, of underselling? What's the Sefer? The Ketani Sefer, learned in the Sefer, later on the Mishnah says, Sabasa, Abimei Zuz, the Kesuvos was 400 Zuz, and we said, okay, so she's selling off. Machla Zebaman or Zebaman is selling for the first one, the second one, the third one, each one she's selling for 100. Well, the last one, Yafa Mana Bedinah B'mana. She sells off something that's worth 101 dinar, she sells only for 100. What did the Mishnah say? Okay, Shalachar Mecher Batal. The last one, the sales is going to be void, because she was Oizel, she undersold it. All other ones is going to be valid. So if I already know the case of Oizel from the Sefer, why would I be saying the same thing in the Reisha? It must be, it's like we were saying what a Mishnah means in the Havamim. It says, well, no. Reisha was saying the Oizel. Both cases talking about where she undersold. So then why am I repeating the halacha two times? It says the Gemara, no, the Sefer, Hakamash Malah. It's come to teach us that time of the Oizel, the Yasmi, that, yeah, she was only owed one more 100 because it's the last one that she's making a mistake. So that error of 101 instead of 100 is a loss of a dinner for the Yisrael because she's not owed anything else. She was only owed one more 100. But with her, for example, let's say she made the mistake by one of the first three sales, which that error would be on her cheshbon because she still has more to collect and to sell from them. Yeah, then the sale is valid because, well, there's no Aino by Karkois, even though she undercharged. Sure, over here, there's not even a shtus, not even a sixth, which is a share of Aino. That's the chiddush that the Sefer is teaching us, that it's only the last field, and that's why it's precise the case that the Mishnah chooses that she made the mistake the last one. That's why it's void. But if that error was in the first ones, okay, good. That was her own loss because we'll just take it off the next sales that she has to do. Says the Gemara, Hamad Reisha. What do I mean? That we already know from the Reisha. Because the Reisha says, in the beginning of the Mishnah was, the first case of the Mishnah was, Pesach Suba was worth 200. And now she sells, let's say something worth 100 for 200. Something worth 200 for 100. We said in either case, Niskabel Ksubasa, she's already received the Ksuba. Meaning, and we don't say that the sale is void. Why not? Didn't you tell me if you're 101 instead of 100, it's void? And here you're selling 200 instead of 100? You're doing a half of its value. Oh, because it's hard loss. So you already know hard loss from the beginning of the Mishnah. So why do you have to tell me that when it's hard loss, we don't care about Oizel? We only care about when it's the loss of the assignment. I already know that from the first case of the Mishnah. Says the Gemara, no. I need to tell you still this case of the last of the four sales that she's doing, when it's Oizel of Yisayim to say, but if it was her Oizel, it would work. Even though I know it from the ratio. Why? What would you say, Hassam over there by the first sale, who did Stalkula Mahai Beis Legami? If the opening case of the Mishnah, when she took a field worth 200, sold it for 100, then we say, yes, we're going to consider it as a valid sale, even though she was oizel for half the value, because she's totally gone now. She's done. You owe 200, now you only got 100, but you took a field worth 200. Now, there's nothing to be geyser over here. Because you're gone, you're out of the equation. What do you mean? Because I will hacha, but over here, but in the case of the seifa, when there's 4 sales that she's doing, the first sale, if she would do something worth 101 for 100, she wouldn't be out of the equation, because she would still have up to another another 299 to sell for. So I would say that nigzum on the rishon, we should make a decree. If she makes a mistake by the first 100, that even there it should be a invalid sale. Why? Isn't that coming off her calculation? Yeah, because atumana achrain. Because we might say then the same thing by the last 100. Oh, that we don't want to do, to allow the last 100 to sell 101 for 100, because that's going to come off the assignment. Kamash Malan, that's what we have to tell you in the Seif of our Mishnah, that even so, only if she makes a mistake by the last 100. If she made a mistake by the first 100, the sale would be valid, because it would be coming off a har cheshbon, and that has a chiddush, because you would have thought maybe no, because even though we know when it's off har cheshbon from the reisha, we're okay with that, but that's only when she's done. But if here she's still going to have more sales, we're going to think, she once did it, she sold 101 for 100, we were okay with it. And maybe the last sale also will be okay with it. No, we're not okay with that one, because that's on the cheshbon of the Yisayim. Maybe I would be geyser. Kamashon, I would not geyser. But again, we have not answered the question to tell you the question that the Gemara is asking. When the shliach does more than what he's asked for, when he sells, instead of a lischa, he sells a kur, he's adding on, we have not proven, we tried to make a raya from our Mishnah, that it's considered like mavir. In the case of when she sells 101 for 100, which we thought that meant to say it was selling 101 for 101, but when we say for 100, it means to say only 100 is otar. So she's doing more than what's asked, and we say the whole sale is void. So you see Maver said, no, it's not the way you're supposed to read the Mishnah. You're supposed to read the Mishnah, she undersold. We said, that's what in the 101 for 100. Said if she undersold, said I already know that from the Sefer. Said, no, I have a chiddush that I need to have from this case, that they both talk about Eisel, but this case of the Sefer is teaching me a chiddush to tell me that it's only the last one's not going to be okay, but the first ones would be okay. And the Gemara says, yeah, but I already know that also from the Reisha, from the first case of the Mishnah of selling a field with 200 for 100, that it's okay when she undersells when it's her. Oh, but that's only when she's out of the equation. When she's not fully out of the equation, I would have thought you'd make a zero until the last one. Therefore, so again, we have not proven regarding this question of Moisiv that's considered as Ma, but thank you to any time I get yom to